Dear friends, prayer of recollection requires our wholehearted cooperation to the grace of God provided at this juncture in the fourth mansions of Interior Castle. We have to make efforts at this cooperation in taking the following steps. What are the steps we can take in this prayer of recollection, which is a grace of God, which is provided for the person to advance in union with God? We can dispose ourselves for such an experience without desiring it or thinking that it can be obtained by our own efforts. First of all, what we must do is beg like the needy poor before a rich and great emperor, and then lower our eyes and wait with humility. Interior Castle, 4th Mansion, Chapter 3, Paragraph 5. Second reason is that these interior works are all gentle and peaceful. Doing something arduous would cause more harm than good. What is that? Making efforts to meditate and wreck our heads for ideas. That should not happen. Interior Castle, Mansion 4, Chapter 3, Paragraph 6. Third is that the very care that is shown, that is to be understood that it is not the work of our mind, but the work of God. The fourth is the most essential and pleasing to God, that we be mindful of His honor and glory and forget ourselves and our own profit and comfort and delight during this prayer. Interior Castle, Mansions 4, Chapter 3, Paragraph 6. Explaining how God wants to put the intellect to silence, she gives the reason how it happens. Open quote. When His Majesty desires the intellect to stop, He occupies it in another way and gives it a light so far above what we can attain that it remains absorbed. Then, without knowing how, the intellect is much better instructed than it was through all the soul's efforts not to make use of it. Interior Castle, Mansions 4, Chapter 3, Paragraph 6. Now there is a twofold movement in this prayer of recollection. The prayer of recollection calls for a movement of the faculties. The will centers and concentrates on God, or rather, it is captivated and occupied by God. The light becomes brilliant. Automatically, the soul is attracted, detached, and freed from creatures. Teresa teaches a positive form of detachment. When the Lord comes with His dazzling light and burning love, creatures lose their overwhelming appeal and are put in proper perspective. The craving within us grows quiet. Creatures are but crumbs in comparison with the banquet the Lord provides. Since the prayer of recollection is still partly active, progress depends on our generosity. However, we could never bear by our own personal exertions the fruit and the fragrance. In this stage of prayer of recollection, we should not try to suspend either the intellect or the mind, but should try to focus the intellect, being aware that we are in God's presence and know who God is. If what the intellect feels within itself absorbs it, she says, that's well and good, but it should not strive to understand the nature of this recollection, for it is given to the will. She advises letting the soul enjoy this recollection without any effort other than some loving words is the best way to continue. Suspension of the intellect will follow without effort, if only briefly as it happens. Dear friends, we have to give an example here according to Saint Teresa of Avila. Concluding her journey through the fourth mansion, she offers a few tips on how the soul feels in the prayer of delight, despite giving a long description on how prayer of recollection occurs. One of the prominent effects of prayer of delight is expansion and dilation of the soul. She returns to the fountain metaphor, but with a difference. Now she asks us to imagine a fountain constructed of a material that can expand so that the more the water flows, the larger the water trough becomes. This refers to our heart or soul that can spiritually expand. She says that in the prayer of delight, God prepares the soul so it can keep everything within itself. The soul has more freedom. The soul is no longer constrained by the fear of hell, although it has an even greater fear of offending God. The soul is left with great confidence that it will enjoy the Lord. Those who have experienced the prayer of spiritual delight have less fear of penance and trials. Sometimes they even desire suffering in order to do something for God. Worldly delights have no attraction, and there is improvement in all the virtues. If the soul does not turn back, it will continue to grow. She clarifies that these effects are not the result of only one or two instances of prayer of delight. The soul must persevere in receiving and practicing these good effects, for in this perseverance is all our good. Then she turns to another metaphor, that is a garden. Teresa, writing on prayer of recollection in her life, imagines the soul as a beautiful garden planted with trees and flowers and drenched and fertile by the water of grace. It gave her great delight to imagine the Lord walks in this garden. The garden of paradise is within her. There the good Lord lavishes his gifts, prunes the branches, and gives the soul the self-knowledge of its helplessness. We cannot, of our own accord, make the flowers of virtue grow. The Lord is the best gardener, and at this stage we must learn to let him work while we are passive and receptive. To the religious enthusiasts who believes in the power of the human will, human initiative and asceticism, the art of listening becomes difficult. He or she does not subscribe to the superiority of passive power over active power, of passive virtue over active virtue. Remaining passive under the working of a higher power is the superior activity of the soul. We need faith to believe that God can do more in a short time in this form of prayer than we can achieve in many years through our own efforts. As the Lord pours down his rain and sunshine, the garden softens, warms up, and grows more beautiful and attractive flowers. It is more refreshed, fertile, and fragrant after one such shower than if we had worked away for many years with our spades, shovels, forks, and buckets. Dear friends, what is the practical lesson that we can learn from this episode? The progressively interior journey to our own center is focused away from ourselves and directed towards God. St. John of the Cross substantiates her claim, open quote, the soul's center is God. When it has reached God with all its capacity of its being and the strength of its operation and inclination, it will have attained to its final and deepest center in God. It will know, love, and enjoy God with all its might. When it has not reached this point, as it happens in this mortal life, in which the soul cannot reach God with all its strength, even though in its center, which is God and His communion with it, it still has a movement and strength for advancing further and is not satisfied. Although it is in its center, it is not yet in its deepest center, for it can go deeper in God. St. John of the Cross, Living Flame of Love, paragraph 1 of the hymn and the paragraph 11, stanza 1, paragraph 11. The most important element of the journey of the soul is deep communion with God, and it happens in its deepest center. It's a kind of God-filled awareness that leads the soul to its own center. Standing on a London street corner, G.K. Chesterton was approached by a newspaper reporter. He asked, "Sir, I understand that you recently became a Catholic. May I ask you one question?" "Certainly," replied Chesterton. And the reporter asked, "If the risen Christ suddenly appeared at this very moment and stood behind you, what would you do?" Chesterton looked at the reporter squarely in the eye and said, quote, "He is." Is this a figure of speech, wishful thinking, a piece of pious talk? No. This truth is at the center of Christian faith. It is the way we believe and think. That Jesus who walked the roads, hills, beaches of Galilee is the same Jesus who stands beside us and accompanies us every step on our road. The historical Christ is the Christ of faith. This has been the Christian faith from the very beginning. Being wide awake means being aware of the presence of the risen Lord in our lives, who moves, walks, and talks to us every day. That is this prayer of recollection, or you call it prayer of delight, where God takes initiative. We let ourselves be guided, led by God Himself. And that actually brings us to a very powerful experience of moving and living with God. Dear friends, this particular episode of Interior Castle number 16 helps us understand that our prayer, when it deepens, when it becomes really refreshing deep within ourselves, when it becomes a part and parcel of our very existence, everything that we do becomes so spontaneous, so filled with generosity, peace, and serenity that we ourselves will wonder what is really happening. And this requires cooperation on our part and total abandonment in the hands of the Lord, who is guiding us, leading us, and who is inspiring and empowering us. God bless you.